who the f knows what arbitration is? Hi, it's me. I'm a real-life lawyer on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. My name is Legia. I'm going to be reacting to Bussy's video about the UK Drag Race contract. If you're new here, I reacted to his reaction to the US contract the other day, and that video kind of popped off, and so I've gotten a number of requests to react to this UK version. I don't know how much different it's going to be, but if Bussy had enough content to be able to create a whole video about it, then hopefully I'll have enough content to share some legal insight with you as to the UK contract. I will note I'm a US attorney and not a contract expert, but you know, I'll do my best. I also hear I maybe got a little shout out in this video, and I'm a Leo rising and can't help myself. I have to see what he says about me, okay? Let me preface this by saying I'm a lawyer, but not your lawyer. Nothing that I say should be construed as legal advice, and you should always seek the advice of a licensed attorney before making any legal decisions. Also, shout out to all of the people who explained to me in the comment section of the last video what Bussy means. Now I know many of your comments ended up in my filtered comments section for being inappropriate, so if you commented and now don't see it, it's not because I deleted it, it's because it's inappropriate, and I thank you. Let's just jump right in, shall we?
It's me, Bussy, and welcome back to my channel.
Ooh, Bussy, our glasses match. Not bad. Mine, however, are very smudged and meant only for reading, so I can't actually see anything at a distance, because I'm 97 years old.
Sweat a lot, and that's not pleasant, and that's TMI, but anyways, Manscaped is here to save the day.
Get that coin, Bussy.
Did y'all know the US is the only advanced economy in the world that doesn't federally mandate paid holidays? The American dream.
Get me out of here.
Both sections have this line in them. I agree that I shall have no expectation of privacy in such locations. However, the UK agreement adds this line after that, and accordingly, I further agree that by doing so, producers shall not infringe or violate the rights of privacy of me or any other party. Basically, both agreements let you know not to expect privacy, but the UK one at least says that they're not gonna violate that privacy, whatever that means.
That's very interesting to me. Okay, so in the UK contract, the first line says, I don't have an expectation of privacy, and then the next line says, but also my privacy won't be violated. So which is it? Are you signing over that you don't have an expectation of privacy, therefore they can violate whatever privacy rights you have, or not? It's interesting because, like Bussy notes, especially in Europe, but there's a lot more protections that people have around the world for their rights than we have in the United States. We love to call ourselves the land of the free, but how free are we? I don't know. Someone send help. That expectation of privacy line, at least in the US version of the contract, is very important because people do have an expectation of privacy in certain situations. People don't have an expectation of privacy in other situations. I like to think of it as two different areas of privacy, at least in the US. So you have the privacy that is protected constitutionally, and then you have privacy that is protected against intrusion, and if someone interferes, you can sue them for money damages. So the Constitution obviously is a higher level bar. The only areas where the Constitution applies is when it comes to criminal justice. So the Fourth Amendment protects your right against unlawful, unwarranted searches and seizure of your personal property or the places where you have an expectation of privacy. Interestingly, you have an expectation of privacy inside your home, but anything that someone could see from the sidewalk walking by, you don't have an expectation of privacy in. So if a cop walks by and looks in your window from the sidewalk and they can see you, you know, doing a drug, for example, you don't have an expectation of privacy from that cop then saying, I saw them doing a drug from the sidewalk in their window, so then I entered to arrest them. Because being able to see you through your window, you didn't have an expectation of privacy, therefore they had probable cause to then go into your house and arrest you, for example. However, a cop can't just say, I think that that person might be doing drugs, and then go into your house and arrest you. If they go into your house without any probable cause and find drugs, you can then challenge that, saying that your Fourth Amendment right against warrantless searches and seizures of a place where you have an expectation of privacy was violated when that cop went in without having any probable cause or a warrant to enter your space. Therefore, if you are able to argue that before a court and do so successfully, the court would then bar any evidence found as a result of that unlawful search or seizure from court, meaning if You're sitting in your house one day, and you're doing drugs, and a cop comes in. They didn't have any reason, any probable cause. They didn't see you from a window. There was no reason for them to have any suspicion of you doing a drug. They come in, they find drugs on the table, and then they try to use those drugs against you in a court of law and say, we found these drugs. You could then argue whether or not they found the drugs. Those drugs can't come into evidence because they found them illegally. So theoretically, the Fourth Amendment protects the citizens from overreaching of law enforcement, from searches and seizures, etc., that violate your privacy. I say theoretically because we all have heard of, stop and frisk and other things that kind of pushes the envelope, makes that expectation of privacy a little tenuous, and it's pretty easy to violate that line and get away with it because there's a lot of exceptions to that expectation of privacy, which I'm not going to delve into too deeply here, but the exceptions to your expectation of privacy do give cops a lot more leeway. For example, there's one that's called inevitable discovery, where if they can argue, we would have eventually found it anyway, then it can come in, or exigent circumstances. So if there's an emergency situation and they break into your house, then it's fine. So you can understand why there's that balancing act, because we want law enforcement theoretically to be able to do their jobs, and if there's an emergency, they can't go to a judge, present what they think is probable cause, get a warrant, and then go into your house. Sometimes they need to just go into someone's house if there's an emergency for some reason. It's a balancing act. So anyway, you have your constitutionally protected expectation of privacy, especially when it comes to searches and seizures by law enforcement. But then you have privacy torts. If you haven't seen my many videos talking about tort law, a tort is a wrong that someone does against you and you sue them in civil court for damages. This is not a criminal thing. It is a civil remedy that is available to you if someone does you wrong. There's a number of different privacy torts. My favorite name for a type of privacy is intrusion on seclusion, which basically means like sharing personal information that you didn't have the right to. The intrusion has to have been intentional and highly offensive to the reasonable person, which is probably what applies here and why they're saying I don't have an expectation of privacy and signing that away in a contract, because as we learned in Buzzy's US contract video, like they wear their mics into the bathroom, so like you're listening to them poop, they could say something that's really personal while they're mic'd, and this basically means they don't have an expectation of privacy in any of that, so they can't then turn around and sue the company for intrusion on seclusion or any other privacy tort. Producers are a private actor. This isn't about the state invading your privacy. So Constitution protects your privacy, but that's not in play here. Here we're talking about torts and the ability of a performer to turn around and sue the producers for using what they've captured on film or audio in their production. It's basically saying like, I won't sue you for the tort of intrusion on seclusion no matter what you share because I don't have an expectation of privacy. So you heard me poop, you can put that on the television. You heard me tell my deepest, darkest secret because I didn't remember that I was mic'd. You can put that on the television. You're basically just signing away like whatever you hear, fair game. I don't have an expectation of privacy while I'm on this show. You're not signing away your constitutionally protected rights though. You can't sign away constitutionally protected rights in a contract usually. So that's still there. But again, this is not a situation where like the cops are going to be coming in. It's really just them protecting themselves from civil liability should they share something that you didn't want shared. So it's interesting to me that in the UK, the line is, I don't have an expectation of privacy, but also you're not going to invade my privacy. It seems like a greater protection than what is afforded US contestants. And I bet there is a UK law that required them to add that line in.
Let's talk about money and copyright. The UK contestants sign over the same ideas, gags, suggestions, themes, plots, stories, characters, characterizations, dialogue, text, designs, graphics, titles, drawings, artwork, merchandise, digital work, songs, music, and more, collectively known as material. And in this section, there's also a fun little paragraph that I left out of my US video that I think will interest you. I acknowledge that producer may depict or portray my likeness and or my life story, either accurately or with such liberties and modifications for the purposes of fictionalization, dramatization, or any other purposes, including without limitation to achieve a humorous or satirical effect.
This is interesting again because one other tort of privacy is use of likeness. So you're signing away your ability to sue them if they use your likeness and you don't like it. You're signing away your ability to object to them using your likeness, even in ways that are like probably defamatory. So not only are you signing away your ability to sue over the tort of privacy and use of your likeness, but you're also, it seems, signing away your ability to sue for defamation, which is another huge thing. Basically, defamation is just a way to sue someone for spreading false information about you in a way that ruins your reputation. Here, there's a great chance that if you are on a nationally, internationally televised show and they're portraying you in an awful way, taking your words out of context, or telling outright lies about you, which it seems like they're able to do based on this clause, you have no recourse. You cannot sue them for defamation because you signed it away. Defamation is a huge tool in someone's tool belt for civil lawsuits. I mean, you hear about defamation lawsuits all the time, especially people who have a bigger name and have a reputation to protect. If you're signing away your ability to sue for defamation, you're signing away your ability to protect that reputation. I'm assuming that this contract allows for the producers to use whatever the content they have of these people in perpetuity. Also, let me look. So I actually got the contract this time. If you remember last time, I spent a long time trying to find the contract. It's on Bussy's Patreon, so go to his Patreon. I'll link it below. I'll link the video below. Someone commented on my last video, why didn't you link the video? Look, I'm a human. I make mistakes. I'm exhausted. I have a full-time job. Please be nice to me. I agree that all results and proceeds of every kind of my participation heretofore and hereafter in connection with the project, including without limitation my performance, any elements of my life story contained within the project, the interviews, all ideas, gags, suggestions, themes, plots, stories, characters, characterizations, dialogue, text, designs, graphics, titles, drawings, artwork, merchandise, digital works, songs, music, photography, video, film, and other material at any time heretofore or hereafter created or contributed by me, which in any way relate to the project, or any material on which the project will be based, whether or not actually used by producer in or in connection with the project, shall be owned solely by producer, and producer shall be sole owner of the entire copyright in the project throughout the universe. Okay, when you make something, anything, you own the copyright in it. You take a picture, you own the copyright in it. You write something down, you own the copyright in it. You can't really own the copyright in like a phrase, for example, but things like text, graphics, drawings, artwork, digital works, songs, music, photography, video, film, that is valuable stuff that if you create it, you automatically own the copyright in it, typically. Under this contract, you are signing away your rights entirely to that copyrighted work that you are creating if it has anything to do with the project. And you're not just giving them a license to use your work, so like you own the copyright in it, but the producers have a license to use it. You're giving them all of the rights. You have no rights to use it without their permission now. So you would have to get a license from them to use your own work going forward, whatever that may be, forever. Most of the time an artist, when they create a work, this is not all the time, but a lot of times, they create something, they retain the copyright in it, and then they can license it out and make money that way by licensing the use of their work. However, a lot of times if they're licensing something out, they're very careful to make sure that it is a limited license. The person can use it for this specific purpose and is limited in time. So like you can use it for this specific purpose for 6 months and you're gonna pay me X amount of money. There's a lot of power in that and having that control over intellectual property. It's very interesting to me that like no matter how big you get, if you wanna ever make any art, anything, videos, photography, art, text, write a book, for example, about your experience on Drag Race, they potentially could then turn around and say, we own it because it's about the project. You're signing away all your rights, all your power, all the value in your copyrighted work. You're signing it away. Oh, I was just gonna say, okay, so there's this idea called works for hire in the US, and I see that they have it listed here. So insofar as is relevant for the purposes of United States copyright law, the material is and shall be deemed to be works made for hire, especially ordered or commissioned by a producer. Basically, it's not really legal to make a contract that just signs over all of your copyrights to someone unless they specifically call it a work for hire. There are laws, though, around works for hire. In order for them to claim all of these ownership over your copyrights, they have to specify that it is a work made for hire. If they don't, then you retain the copyright. Because they've specified in it, in this contract that you're signing, that it's a work made for hire, they are just covering their butts by saying that it's a work made for hire, so they jumped through the hoops. They put the language that they needed to have in the contract to make it clear that you are making the work as a contractor, as being commissioned. It's a real blanket statement in this contract. So usually I've seen work for hire contracts being like, you are going to create this specific thing for this company. This specific thing that you're creating is going to be considered a work for hire. You both know what you're getting yourself into. You both understand like, okay, I'm giving you all the copyrights in this very specific thing that I'm making for you that I've been hired to do. This whole section says whatever I make, anything that has anything anything to do with the project in any copyrightable form is a work made for hire. TBD what that will be, but this is just a blanket provision saying like anything I make is a work for hire and you own every piece of it. All the value of your copyrighted work is out the window when you sign this.
Especially when you take into consideration that there is no prize pool for winning this season and there's no episodic prizes for winning challenges either.
Okay, I think people commented this on my video, but like, you don't win anything when you win Drag Race in the UK? Like nothing. Not $1. Exposure? Really? RuPaul's trading on exposure now? You'd think he would even know enough to be like, that's laughable. Taking advantage of people's dreams to make a buck. But in the US version of the show, RuPaul's making $50,000 an episode. That's capitalism, baby!
And by the way, there are no cash prizes on the UK series, not because like the BBC is too cheap to pay them or anything, but because the BBC is a publicly funded network. This means the general population of the UK pays for programming on the BBC.
I wonder if RuPaul chose to work with the BBC specifically for that reason. Or does RuPaul not make any money?
So either way, it does kind of suck to have that in your contract, but the US version has that other projects clause for 24 months versus the UK's 12. It's another...
I bet there's a law in the UK that bars anything longer than 12 months. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have stretched that. In the US, there's not really a law. There are certain states that have laws. Like, for example, in California, there is a law that says that you can't do an exclusivity provision like that, partially to improve competition and partially because of Silicon Valley. You have very specialized people in the tech industry moving around company to company and also with a lot of money to influence politicians. So they wanted to write into the laws in California that you can't have that exclusivity provision, but other states allow it, obviously. But I bet there's a law in the UK that bars it from being longer than that. Otherwise, I would assume that they would have left it at 24 months because obviously they would want it to last as long as possible.
However, Legia Miller, a lawyer that reacted to my US contract video,
It's me.
The US contract has a mediation arbitration clause in it that the UK one does not. It states, I understand that Exhibit D waives my right to sue producer, VMN, and any other assignee in a court of law. I knowingly and voluntarily waive my right to a jury trial or court trial and freely consent to the terms of Exhibit D. Instead, they agree to use an arbitrator, who's supposed to be like an impartial third party to settle disputes.
So that's a really common provision in US contracts, especially with a big company like whatever this company is called. There are laws around that they have to make it very clear. That's why that section's bolded and you have to specifically agree to that arbitration provision. This allows the company to choose an arbitrator or a mediator to mediate any conflict between them and whoever is trying to sue them. It takes away the person who signed that contract's ability to sue in a court of law over this contract. So that actually kind of upends everything I said in my last video about the US contract, because even if you had issues with this contract and you wanted to argue like it's unconscionable or I didn't enter it knowingly or your balance of power is off and I was not freely entering the contract or whatever you wanted to argue, you wouldn't have a day in court to do that. You'd have to do it before an arbitrator that the company chose. The reason why they do this is A, it means the ball's in their court. They're gonna pick someone in California or wherever they're headquartered that's gonna make it easy for them, and it's gonna save them a crap ton of money. Litigation is expensive. It takes hours and hours and hours of lawyer work to bring together all the material, to go through all of the steps that are necessary in a litigation, and then just getting the court dates scheduled out. It can take years and millions of dollars. Whereas arbitration, it's private, it takes it out of the court system. It usually takes a lot less time, and it means that they're able to kind of keep it under wraps a little bit better because court documents theoretically are public information. Of course, most court documents are protected by a paywall. If you want to try to access them online, you'd have to show up at your county offices, ask for a specific case and paperwork, and you could technically get it, but I don't know that I'd call that accessible, but technically they're public information. So if they move it to arbitration, that keeps it private, that keeps it out of the public eye, it keeps them in control, and it keeps it cheaper for them. That's why they have to bold it like that, because theoretically that's going to inform you and make sure that you notice like, okay, I'm signing away these rights. Who the f knows what arbitration is? Raise your hand if you knew what an arbitration was before I just explained it to you.
The UK contract has a specific BBC production protocols document included. Here are some of the most interesting protocols in that document. For the avoidance of doubt, you will not be mic'd or recorded in your hotel room. The US contract, on the other hand, makes no mention of that.
See, this supports my theory that UK privacy laws are a lot stronger than here in the US.
Portrayal of any individual's life story will be accurate and fair and in accordance with the BBC guidelines. Which sounds really nice, but remember, both contracts have the clause that we read earlier that says that they can misrepresent contestants to an even satirical or humorous effect. That's directly at odds with what this BBC document says.
So I bet what it is that like the lawyers for the Drag Race show maybe drafted the first agreement, the 28-page one, or however long it was, and then the BBC required them to tack on this other agreement at the end as an exhibit. That would be well, here's again where that arbitration provision comes in. I get they would be able to argue it in front of the arbitrator, like, this is a contradictory thing. The contract contradicts itself, so which provision applies? That would be something that would be up to the arbitrator to determine. But even if a judge potentially were to say the main clause that said that they can be portrayed however they want governs and that BBC clause does not, the BBC could still say, well, it doesn't comply with our guidelines, so we're not even going to put it on the TV. We're not even going to show it, which would give BBC some control where, like, they don't need a judge to come in and say whether or not it governs. BBC can say, well, I don't care, we're not going to put it on our network.
The BBC takes very seriously their duty of care to you, and together with World of Wonder will ensure that you get the appropriate support throughout the process, and will be providing a point of contact for who you can get in touch with about any concerns relating to emotional harm, injury, interaction with other participants, and any concerns relating to your personal finances.
This sounds to me like a nonprofit that's trying to, like, seem more non-profity. Like, we're good, we're soft, we're nice people. It kind of seems like a HR. Like, your HR person's like, I'm the person you can go to like talk about your grievances. So because World of Wonder's the producer, BBC is a third party that you could go to and say, like, hey, my rights are being violated, and maybe the BBC wouldn't be able to do anything if it's written into the contract, but like I said, the BBC could definitely have control over, like, whether or not a show is gonna be shown at all. However, I would probably venture a guess that RuPaul's Drag Race probably brings in a lot of views to the BBC, so they probably wouldn't want to not show something. So that's going to be a business decision to the BBC to determine whether or not they're willing to sacrifice their morals in order to get Drag Race on people's televisions.
There is a net positive, I think, for queens that are willing to make the most of their time on the show.
I think that's true, and I think that's why World of Wonder knows they can get away with this, and why it's probably really common in a lot of reality show contracts, because people know people are willing to sign away a lot of stuff to get their, 15 minutes of fame to hopefully then turn it into a lifetime of fame. And they're right. If it's your dream, it's what you want, you're willing to do a lot to get it. The thing is, though, like, you gotta read the contract that you're signing, and when you do sign it, you need to know what you're signing, and then you also need to understand that you're entering it willingly. But as I talked about last time, this idea of competition and how RuPaul's Drag Race tends to be the only show out there. I know there's other drag-related shows, but if you think drag TV show, you think RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, there's not really anything else out there to that level. So we can talk about that lack of competition all day long, but at the end of the day, you are signing this contract willingly. This is not like a constitutional violation of your rights where you're being forced to do anything. You could certainly argue that the contract itself has provisions that aren't, awesome and that maybe aren't enforceable, but like the premise behind contract law is, like, for the most part, it's a arm's length deal that you are entering into knowingly and willingly, and no one is holding a gun to your head and making you sign this Drag Race contract. So can we get up in arms over the terms of it? Sure. Are they taking advantage of people's desire to be in the limelight and to make a career out of drag? Yes. But this isn't life or death. You know what I mean? So. But it's very interesting to talk about, and I think that there are implications to, like, what people are willing to do to get famous in today's day and age, says a YouTuber. So, like, I don't have anything, like, I'm calling the pot black here, but, like, you know what I mean. We're all complicit in this, all right? God damn it. Just watch Drag Race if it's fun for you. don't if you don't want to. Sign the contract if it's your dream and you're willing to just do whatever it takes. Like, live your life. You know what I mean? Also, that arbitration provision kind of means that you don't really have a shot in hell if you want to contest it. Maybe you do. You'd still have to hire a lawyer though. And it means that we're never gonna see if they do go to court because it's just gonna be private and arbitrated, so. But Bussy, this is called comparative law, what you're doing, and it's a very interesting area of work to get into if you decide you wanna go to law school. Compare different legal systems. It's fascinating. So thank you for your work on this, Bussy. Thank you for the shout out in your video. Thank you for more content to react to, and maybe collab someday. It seems to be what the people want. If you found this video informational or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button if you want to hear more from me. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye. Okay. Let's do it.